One of the most frustrating things when it comes to budgeting is getting your plan all set for the month, and then an unexpected expense comes out of left field and throws the whole thing off. When we first started budgeting years ago, this happened quite often. Every month, we would have a perfectly set monthly budget, and then sometime within the month, something would come up and our entire monthly budget would be thrown out the window. Now, we weren't sure how to handle this at first, but over time we tested a few different things and eventually we found something that worked really well for us and we still use this method to this day. So, I want to share with you in this episode 6 of my favorite sinking funds that help us keep our budget on track so that even if those unexpected expenses come up, we've got them covered and it doesn't throw off our monthly plan.
Are you ready to stop the chaos, the stress, the overwhelm that's filling your life? I'm Renae Matt, and together you and I are going to build simple routines that are going to change your life. When you put these habits into practice, you're going to be able to organize your life in a way where you can be there for your family, pay off your debt, save money, your house can stay organized, you don't have to stress about what's for dinner, and you still get time for yourself. So without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to the Routine Advantage Podcast.
So, before we actually talk about the 6 sinking funds, I first want to kind of explain the difference between an emergency fund and a sinking fund if you aren't already aware. So, when you are talking about your savings, you might be thinking, like, okay, I have just a savings account and that's it. Everything for savings goes into one solid account. And you can kind of pull from this whenever you need to. But when you are budgeting and you're designating where your funds are going, you're also designating what they're supposed to be spent on when it comes time. So, your emergency fund, what you're doing is you're separating your general savings with an emergency. So, you're separating it so that you have some set aside that is basically untouchable unless something catastrophic happens. This fund is for emergencies only. This is like if you lose your job and you need to cover expenses, if you get into an accident and you have, additional expenses that your insurance isn't covering. It is not a fund that, you get a really good deal on a nice TV and you just pull from that fund in the meantime and then try and refill it later. That's not what the emergency fund is for. Your emergency fund is usually 3 to 6 months of your expenses, of your basic expenses to live, and it is set aside and it is basically unavailable unless an emergency happens. Now, your sinking funds are a little bit different. They're both savings funds, but the emergency fund is different than sinking funds. Your sinking funds are meant to be used on something, a specific purpose. So, what we like using our sinking funds for are sometimes just one time things where it's like, okay, a replacement vehicle or a specific vacation. But then sometimes they're kind of recurring or ongoing funds where we're just constantly kind of putting into them and we're also withdrawing from them and making it work for us because this is a fund that is constantly getting contributed to and also being used at the same time. So it really just depends on the category of your sinking fund and it'll make sense a little bit more once I explain the sinking funds that are my 6 of my favorites to help us stay on track with our budget. But basically, when you are looking at your sinking funds, you might also be asking, like, I've had this question come up before of how to actually save sinking funds. Do you need different accounts or anything like that? And you don't. You just need to know how it's organized. So while some people do prefer to separate their accounts, I find that that actually becomes more confusing. So I like to put our sinking funds on a spreadsheet. I have a tracker that is within my online course that if it is not released by the time this episode comes out, because I'm recording this early, I'm hoping to have it out soon, if not already. So if you need to go and check and see if this is available in the course yet, check the show notes and see where we're at with that because I'm not exactly sure at the moment of this recording. But it should be soon if it's not out already. But what we're looking at doing is we're putting our sinking funds on a spreadsheet and then we are knowing what we want to save and where we're at with that balance. So if you and you could do this on a piece of paper as well. Like you just want to track how much money is in each fund. in one account. So you might have an account that has, say there's $5,000 in there. You might have $5,000, but when you look at that savings fund or your savings account on your bank statement, it says 5,000, but on your sinking funds sheet, you know that it is broken up separately. You don't just have $5,000 to spend willy-nilly on anything you want. You have $5,000 that is separated into specific funds. So you might have, $500 dedicated to health. You might have $500 dedicated to replacing your vehicle. You might have $500 dedicated to a tax payment. And then you might have, what's left there? I can't do math right now. $3,500 dedicated to a down payment for a new house. Like those are the things that you're looking at is like, even though it says 5,000, you have it all assigned to specific things so that when you are looking at that new TV that looks like a good deal, you can look at these sinking funds and go, well, I have this designated for other priorities and I need to pass on that TV, or I need to maybe even set up a sinking fund for a new TV so that over the course of several months, I can start saving enough to get a new TV later. And it becomes part of the plan rather than just an impulse purchase. So, those are the types of things that you're looking for when you are creating a sinking fund. You are looking for the purpose of what you're trying to save for, and then you are creating a plan to help break it down so that these purchases don't come out of your monthly budget. Now, if you are new to budgeting or you're still trying to understand this concept, basically what you are doing to contribute to your sinking funds is creating a plan to contribute to them, preferably monthly. Now, when we are looking at our personal budget, what we're looking at doing is actually creating a plan to kind of use our sinking funds as almost like a bill. So, we're creating a plan to contribute a specific amount into our sinking funds each month because then in our sinking funds, we can let it build and build and build. And then when we need it, when that unexpected expense comes up that we weren't planning for in that monthly budget, we can look at our monthly budget and we don't have to take money from a different category. It doesn't throw off our plan for the month because we've already got money set aside because we've been collecting funds over the course of months. And we've been collecting these funds so that when an expense comes up, we can just pull from the sinking funds and it doesn't affect our monthly budget because this is what was throwing us off so much and it was so frustrating. But now that we have the sinking funds in place, we can pull from those instead of our monthly budget. And that helps a ton in helping us stay on track. So, the six favorite sinking funds of mine, my personal opinion, is number one, a health fund. This allowed us to plug a little bit each month into a sinking fund so that when things come up, like we need to refill any supplements, we need to up our protein powder order, or we need to get something like some sort of medication that isn't, maybe we don't have enough HSA funds at the moment. Things like that that come up that are health related, we weren't necessarily planning for those at the beginning of the month because something changed throughout the month. Those are the types of things that would come out of our health fund. The second one is a clothing fund for each person. This one made such a big difference and it is so smooth to use. So basically, we're not big shoppers. Neither one of us are big shoppers, but we do tend to go in spurts where we'll go long periods of time without buying anything clothing or shoes or accessory related. And then all of a sudden, we kinda get that bug, and it's like, "Oh, I wanna replace some things in my closet," and we tend to buy several pieces at once. And when we were doing this, when we were only budgeting through our monthly budget, it would always throw it off because it was like, "Okay, well, now we need to budget extra for this month to replace this, and now this is going to, take 2 or $300 from our monthly budget, and that's gonna throw off how much we wanted to save," and we just ended up kind of alternating on which one of us was going to kind of do the shopping. And it just became kind of a hindrance to our monthly budget and our goals that we were looking for. But once we started setting up a clothing fund for us, then we had that money already set aside where it didn't affect our monthly budget when it came time to do some shopping. And we started with just one clothing fund, but what we found was that, it was hard to kind of balance. It's like, "Well, how much did you buy? Because I don't want to, spend more than I need to." And then he didn't wanna spend more than he needed to, and we were just kind of always kind of bouncing away from or bouncing off of each other, trying to figure out who spent what out of the clothing fund, and then we were like, "Let's just separate it." We each get our own clothing fund, and then it's much easier to track, and we don't have to feel like we're either overspending or underspending because you know exactly how much you have to spend out of your own account. So if you have kids, I would even recommend that you give each kid a clothing fund amount, or a clothing fund sinking fund, because then you know exactly how much that child has to spend on new clothes. So basically, what we do is we have a set amount that goes into this sinking fund each month, and it does not have to be huge, but happens is it goes in each month, and it just builds until we need it. So then when we do have that like spurt where it's like, okay, I need to replace a lot of different things, we can just go into that sinking fund and say, okay, how much do we have each to spend on clothes right now? And we can either decide to spend all of it, we can decide to spend just a portion of it, and it works really well for us. And Tony does the same thing. Like when he is ready to replace some things or buy some things, then he is asking me because I have oversight of the of the budget. I'm the one that, like, tracks everything in there, and then we talk about it all the time. So, he's always asking me, like, "Oh, how much do I have in my clothing fund?" And then I will let him know, and then he knows exactly how much he has to go and spend and do some shopping if he wants to. So, it works really, really well, and it never affects our monthly budget because we've already plugged this money aside each month and let it build until we actually need it. The third fund is a charity and giving fund. This was another one that really threw us off on our monthly budget because we would have a set amount that we were planning to, tithe or gift or anything like that. But we both have big families, and so and we have a lot of, like, in a lot of friends and, like, our friend circle, so we had it where, it was, like, a big birthday coming up or an anniversary, and it's like, "Oh, let's all pitch in and contribute to this gift." Or it was, a GoFundMe because somebody had an accident or had some sort of health scare, and there was a GoFundMe set up that we wanted to contribute to. And if we didn't already know about these things ahead of time, when we created our monthly budget, it was throwing it off by quite a bit because sometimes this was a significant chunk of money that was going to these types of charity or giving uh, categories. So when we were looking at that, we were like, okay, let's create a charity or giving sinking fund because then we can plan to just plug in a little bit of money every month and let it build so that when these things do arise, we've got a little bit of money set aside and we know how much we can contribute to this without it affecting our monthly budget. That one has helped so much. And if you find yourself in this situation where, giving ends up throwing your monthly budget off, but you still want to give, this is a really great way to do it, is to create a sinking fund for your giving expenses. And this is outside of like we still monthly budget for like church and gifts that we are aware of. We still do plug some of those into our monthly budget. Tithing is definitely plugged into our monthly budget, but gifts are kind of occasional. Like we don't buy gifts every month. But if you do, you could still do some monthly budgets for that and plan for it, but still plug away some of this money for a fund so that those unexpected expenses that arise can come out of there instead of throwing off your plan for your month. The fourth sinking fund is your home maintenance fund. So this one, when we bought our house, this was one that was like absolutely necessary. I think it was the first or second weekend that we were in our home was our basement flooded. It was like a huge storm and we're on a hill and all of the water came down the hill and something got caught. I think it was like a branch or something got caught in the city drains and it backed up into our basement. And I was like, okay, like we had to call a plumber and he had to snake it out. And like it was it was a whole thing. So we knew that we needed to have money set aside for this. And then there was another week that like our um our washing machine broke, our something happened with our shower, and it all happened in the same week. We had to replace all these things. So it's like, okay, it's a good thing we have this fund set aside for home maintenance because that would have really thrown off our monthly budget. But it didn't. It didn't affect our monthly budget at all because we had money set aside for home maintenance. So when these expenses came up, we didn't even have to touch our emergency fund. Like we were able to just cover these expenses because we had planned ahead with a sinking fund, and it did not cost a lot to plug a little bit of money into these each month to build this fund so that we were prepared. And the same goes for number 5, which is a vehicle maintenance fund. This is the same thing. This might be a fund where it is just for unexpected expenses, like if something goes wrong with your vehicle, but it might also be for planned expenses. So you might be setting aside money for replacing your tires or oil changes or anything that needs to be done with your vehicle, any maintenance or repairs. This could be a fund for those types of expenses so that when that comes up, it doesn't throw off your monthly budget. Because a lot of times when we have issues with our vehicles, they were not planned. So this is a time where you can plug a little bit of money away so that you're prepared when something does go wrong and it is not as stressful because you know you're covered for the expenses. And then the sixth one is a Christmas fund. If you do a lot of Christmas shopping or you have more gifts or purchases to make around Christmas time, even if it's like baking expenses, like maybe you do a ton of baking, it's going to cost extra for those groceries. So a Christmas fund for decorations, baking, gifts, gift wrap supplies, like all of those things can come out of a Christmas fund, and you can save a little bit each month all year long so that when it comes to Christmas time, it does not affect your monthly budget. It is such a gift at that time of year to not have money be stressful at all because you've been planning ahead and you've got this fund already set up. It is such a game changer when it comes to how your monthly budget flows. So those are my 6 that are, like, probably my top favorites to help us stay on track. We do have other sinking funds, but these are the ones that are really helpful to make sure that we have planned ahead. Now, you might be thinking like, "Okay, well, how much am I supposed to put in each fund for each month?" And it's totally up to you. You can put the same amount in each one and just distribute it evenly. You can break it up and you can do different amounts, but basically, you just wanna decide how much you want to contribute to each fund each month, and then you wanna take the total and you want to plug that into your base budget so that it pulls from your income and you have that as a budgeted line item because you want to plan for how much you're going to put away. And this is basically just like a bill. You put it into your base budget like you're paying a bill, but you're actually paying yourself. So it ends up being that you become kind of your own bank as well where you are saving this money for yourself to help alleviate that stress later on. So if you do, say, $25 a month for each of these funds, what you're doing is each fund would then have $300 for the year. So that kind of breaks it up. So if you're contributing $50 a month to each of your sinking funds, each of those sinking funds are going to get $600 a year into that fund. You can also break it up instead of doing the actual amount. And if this is too much, like maybe your budget is super strapped right now and you can only do, 5 or $10, it's better than nothing. Do what you can to build that fund so that at least it helps make a little dent when it comes time to doing those expenses. And you'll learn what works better for you if you would prefer to try to get more in each month, or if a little bit is working better for you initially, you can decide that. But start with something small if you can't do a lot. And you might have an income where it's like, okay, I can contribute, $100 or $200 to this each month. You can do whatever works best for you. You might have a huge goal, and if your income can maintain it, maybe you're putting $1,000 into a certain sinking fund each month. It just depends on your personal finances. But nothing is or something is better than nothing. I should say that. And something is better than nothing. Another way that you can do it, instead of doing the specific amount and then totaling it up how much it is, you can have like a goal. So let's say your goal is to save $1,000 in a specific fund, then you know that you can just take 1,000 and divide it by 12 months, and that makes it so that you have to save $83.33 a month to get $1,000 in one of these sinking funds per year. So you can do it that way, where you can just kind of go backwards and pick your goal and then divide it by the months, and then you know how much you need to contribute to that sinking fund each month to hit your goal. And then that is what you would put into your base budget, is the total of all of your goals to contribute to these sinking funds. And then that becomes your line item to contribute to your sinking funds for the month. So if you are wanting to get help on, getting your base budget and how to set that up, you can go to episode 32, and this will help walk you through how to create your base budget to help you with this and to help you kind of organize how you want to do your monthly budget and help start like actually creating a plan to contribute to sinking funds. And then I do have a few other episodes I just want to share with you quickly. Is number 85 is how many sinking funds should I have? This is 14 ideas for your budget routine, and it will include the six that I shared with you today, but it will give you some more ideas if you are wondering if maybe there are others that might benefit you. Episode 121 is three questions to get back on track after consistently overspending in your budget. So if you're struggling with that, that's another way to get some ideas. And episode 131 is four methods to save and manage your sinking funds. So if you're looking at how to actually manage those, like in an account or on a spreadsheet, things like that, it gives you some ideas on different methods that you can use. But this is a way that I love using, because then I can make sure that we have a plan to contribute each month to these sinking funds. It doesn't throw off our monthly budget, and it helps us keep that monthly budget on track. So I know that it has helped a ton for us. So I hope it helps you as well. And you can take the six that we have that I shared with you today, or you can choose your own that work best for you. And if this is sounds overwhelming, start with just one sinking fund. Just have a plan for one. Like maybe it's Christmas, maybe it's clothing, maybe it's health, maybe it's, a home maintenance, whatever it is. Start with just one fund if this many feels overwhelming, and just contribute a little bit to it each month and see how that goes. And then bump it up to two when you're ready, bump it up to three when you're ready, and just keep moving forward. You will find the ones that work best for you. You might set up a sinking fund and realize, like, I actually don't need this fund and it's not actually useful. So get rid of it. Put the funds from that fund into something else, and then you can make adjustments as you go. Just because you set up a plan doesn't mean you can't tweak that plan later on, but having the money set aside is never going to be a negative thing. It's always going to be in your favor to have this money set aside instead of spending it on those impulse purchases and then being really thrown off when an unexpected expense comes up. There is nothing that is more satisfying as having a financial uh, inconvenience come up, but it's just that. It's not stressful, it's just kind of inconvenient, but you're not stressed because you've already got the money set aside. And that can be such a relief when you are trying to get ahead with your finances. And if you feel like you are stressed with money at all, I highly recommend that you start building your base budget and getting a plan in place, and then getting these sinking funds in place as well, so that you can have a plan to organize your finances and to be prepared when things arise that you weren't expecting, because life happens, life is life, and things will come up that are not planned or expected. And we can do what we can to be prepared for them so that it is much less stressful as time goes on. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know. You can either email me directly. You can also pop them into our Facebook community at facebook.com/groups/ the routine advantage community. I'm always happy to answer any questions in there. Or if you have a topic that you would like to have me talk about on the podcast, you can go ahead and share it in there as well. And I would be happy to answer. So I hope you have a wonderful day. I will catch you back here on the next episode.
Did you love that episode or learn something useful? If so, would you do me a huge favor? My goal is to grow this podcast and help as many women as I can break free from the overwhelm so they can truly enjoy their life. The best way for me to do this is for you to leave a 5-star written review on your podcast app and to share this episode with a friend or in your Instagram stories. I appreciate you being here. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next episode. Take care.